Gonna be one of those hazy sunsets. Now I haven't really did a crop update. I did kind of. That's all I'm doing anymore is crop updates. It's time we start messing with that thing. You know, we're gonna have to start doing some actual haymaking work. I got plenty of hay to make. Got about 2,000 acres to do. You know, everybody's like, "Oh, you must not be doing hay anymore." I'm doing hay. It's just I haven't gotten around to doing any yet. I've been busy chasing the row crops. So today I just came through and I put down my final application of, this is actually the second application of glyphosate. I did not use a residual on this corn, or this beautiful crop of corn. Can you tell I'm tired? This is where the pile of mulch was, so this is a little bit compacted and run over. But you get out in here, this was where Theresa had replanted, and we have velvet leaf, and we have soybeans, nice soybeans. This is my knee, so it's knee high by the 4th of July. Actually, the soybeans that are over in those fields are about mid-thigh. The field down below is about mid-thigh. This field and the next one over were the only two fields that we had to replant, but those two bottom fields and everything out there was no replanting done. So velvet leaf dies real easy. Glyphosate will take that out. I also used a foliar feed, and the foliar feed, potash, felt that it was the most effective way to boost my yield. They say I can bump my yield between 5 and 7 bushels with what I used. I used a combination of two products there, so I will no longer have to go through this field of soybeans anymore unless there's something dumb that happens, I don't know, for some reason I have a foxtail like this start to come up through, but it's pretty well canopied now. And if I got to go through it, it's not really a big deal because I've already mashed down the rows, and I've mashed down the rows, so I just follow them anyway. The second product I'm not going to talk about. It is a foliar feed as well, just something that I'm using. It is a mineral. I've used it in, there's a deer way down there. You hear that thing? See, there's 2 deer down there. They will not come out into this field after I put that foliar feed on. That's one thing that I've really come to realize, that foliar feed really deters the deer. And it deters them for weeks, even after rain. They just don't come out. We don't have the deer that we used to have, but we did have deer, and when I put that on, those deer just moved on. So I'm just going to kind of keep that to myself until I test it thoroughly, but I know I will not need to come back onto these fields again. I have 2 more farms that I have to not respray, but actually apply the foliar to. I don't have to put Roundup down because I did that once already. The burn down was perfect on that. So there's approximately 100 acres of soybeans that I still have to spray again. I screwed up and I actually put on, well, I can't even tell you what I put on. I'm going to have to edit that out. My secret sauce. Yeah, I almost gave away my secret sauce. So I screwed up with the secret sauce and I put down 4 or 5 gallons in there, about 4.5 gallons to the acre of secret sauce. And it isn't going to benefit me after that. But I do have, let's see, 140, God, I got quite a few acres I got to put secret sauce on. Approximately, 350 acres that have to have secret sauce put on. Yeah, 350 acres that need secret sauce. So anyways, this is going to die off. The deer are really not hammering me too much. The neighbor, he took his weed off and he put down his, he put soybeans in the ground. And I feel that with what I put on here, has driven the deer off, they'll go right over to his soybeans and eat them, because he doesn't know what I'm using, and I'm not forfeiting any of that information over, and not to anybody, because you know what? If the deer aren't eating my soybeans and they're eating his, he goes out of business and I take over his ground. That's how that works. And so I'm just going to be a stingy farmer. And you can't even find any information on what I'm doing online. It's a combination of 2 different products. I'll tell you the one product is potassium nitrate. They don't like that. So they don't like potassium nitrate. But it's, what is it, $13 or $14 an acre to put it on. That's the foliar feed potassium, potash. And, you know, it'll work, it'll grow, it'll do its thing. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to go talk about my car in a minute. So just stick with me for a few minutes. If you don't want to hear about my Model A, and then you can just sign off now. Just leave a comment. If you think my beans suck, put that down. If you think they're good, put that down. If you think I'm a jackass, go ahead and write that down, because you know, it takes all kinds to make the world go around. And I know the jackasses anyway. Anyway, I was wrong. I'm going to read what this stuff is. It's potassium carbonate, potassium thiosulfate, and potassium citrate. Those are the 3 ingredients. Gives you 27% soluble potash and 5.6% soluble sulfur. Soybeans love those things. You can put 1 to 2 quarts to the acre. I opted for 1 quart because it just seemed like a better thing to do. So anyways, now let's just talk about my cars. This is my Model A Ford 1931. It's a late 1931. You can tell it's a late 1931 because of the firewall. The firewall is indented, and it is different. This will accept the V8 flathead, the flathead V8. It will fit in there for like the 32 model year. So it's a late 31 5-window coupe deluxe. Now, this is not Grandpa's car. It's my car. I bought this car, and I think I've explained this a few years ago, but I bought this car when I was 19 years old. I bought 2 of these things when I was young. Was I 19 or had I turned 20? I think it was 19. This one here was the first one I bought. This is 1925. It's actually a 1924. But back in the day, if you didn't sell it in 1924, you sold it in 1925. So it was titled in 1925. This car runs and drives just fine. Yeah, it does. I've ran it and driven it many times, all over the place. And that's a 27 Chevy Coupe. 1927 Chevy Capital Coupe. That's what that one is. I found that one. I think I've told that story before. Found that one in a barn. A fellow that was here, I was cutting lumber for him, and he said, "Hey, I got one of those cars." Because that Model A that we're looking at right now was in this building, and it wasn't green, it was maroon and black, and I had it redone. The kit to do the interior is all right there. I'm gonna pull it out here. I might do this on my birthday, I'm not sure. Excuse me. I'm gonna wash it and actually wax it, because it needs to be washed and waxed, and then I'll use my car cover. So when I was 19 years old, I got married when I was 19 in October of 91. I got married to my high school sweetheart, biggest mistake I ever made. But I bought that 1925 Model T just a couple months later. I think it was in early December. And I worked on that car pretty near all winter. And then in the spring, there was this car that went up for sale, and it was complete just the way it sits. Yeah, it was complete the way it sits. So I think this has the wheel. Yeah, there's this with a spare tire. It was complete the way it sits, and the story behind it was, and it was used. I'm just gonna sit back and talk, and you can look at the car. It was the story behind this car was that it was a, I don't know how do I say it? It was a lawyer's car during the Lindbergh trial. So, if you don't know the Lindbergh trial, it was a big case where Charles Lindbergh's baby was kidnapped and murdered, and they caught the guys, and this was actually one of the lawyer's cars. Now, it's not documented on paper because it had changed hands a few times since 1930, whatever, 36, or whatever year it was, but this was supposed to be one of the lawyer's cars. I forget what year Lindbergh baby was killed. Anyway, it was a big thing, and my grandmother listened to it on the radio when she was a little girl with her parents, my great-grandparents, because they lived right across the river. So when I bought the car, the guy says, look, this car was one of the lawyer's cars in the Lindbergh trial. It was one of the Lindbergh's lawyers. I think it was Lindbergh's lawyers. It was one of the lawyers that worked on the Lindbergh trial. It was his car. And the cool thing about it was that when they did the reenactment of the Lindbergh trial, they did that back in the 80s. This, in the 1980s. And I remember when that went on, it was a big thing. It was all through the Delaware Valley News and the Hunterdon County Democrat, and all the local newspapers and radio stations covered it, that it was the Lindbergh trial, and it was reenacted. And they actually went to the old courthouse and did everything. And this car was used in the reenactment as well. So when I bought it, I paid pretty good money for the car. It was a running, driving, not in too bad a shape car. It had been washed and it was washed and waxed one too many times, is what I said. They'd started to rub through the paint with the polish, and it wasn't in great shape, but it was in good shape. Matter of fact, when I had this rebuilt, anybody that had ever seen a Model A said that this Model A was one of the finest examples of a 1931 Model A coupe that they had ever seen, because there were really no problems with the car. A lot of times, and I'll walk over to the car, I'll show you, a lot of times they'll rot out here. Fenders will rot out. All that stuff will be rotting out. And one of the biggest places that they'll rot is right here, in that front cowling there. Well, this one had cancer in it, and I actually welded that in, and I think I made a couple of videos how I welded both the right and the left-hand side, and it's solid steel. There is no Bondo. There is no Bondo at all in this car. But the cool thing about it was when the guy that I had paint it, because I hate painting, not that I couldn't paint, it's just I hate it, up in these corners there was lead, where they had done lead bodywork. And he consulted a very old man by the name of Ralph. And Ralph told him that that leading was probably done at the factory. When these bodies came into Ford, they didn't really treat them very nice. They would come down with these two hooks and hook under the thing here and pick them up off of the rail car or the truck that was bringing them in. And then they would go into the assembly line, and they would get dents and dings and stuff in them. So they had a body shop right there at Ford, and they would lead those in, and there was 3 or 4 spots where there was creases, no holes through it at all, but these little creases, and they thought that was really cool, because these cars traditionally had Bondo everywhere. They would roll these cars over, these would be bashed in, they'd bang them out, and then this would all be painted with, Bondo and everything. And this is a reverse trunk lid rumble seat. You can tell by the handle. The seat's not in there because I took it out, and when I took it out, well, I didn't take it out. I took it to the guy to paint it, and he took it out, and a scrapper came along and took my seats, took the springs, the original springs, and threw them away. But I have the coverings for them and all the panels and everything that go inside there. So I'll open it, and I'll show you what it looks like in there. Well, there's a gun case in there. There's no gun in there. But that's what it looks like, and this is the backing, and the plates are there and everything. But yeah, so that's the reverse trunk lid. Now normally a reverse trunk lid on a Model A opens here. right here. There's the switch, the handle would be here, and then you would raise it up. But because it's a rumble seat, or the mother-in-law seat, as somebody said. So anyway, so when I bought the car, I was newlywed, married. And of course, my wife at the time was not thrilled that I had just spent more money than we had on a car. I borrowed the money from my uncle, and I paid him back. It was not something that I didn't pay back. I paid him back. It took me a year to pay him back. And a lot of memories with that car with my uncle. He died in 2011 at age 93 or 93 or 94. So, but anyways, at least I had those memories with him. And the story with this car, if you remember a couple of videos back, I was talking to my dad about somebody wanting the car. Well, the car that somebody was wanting was actually that car right there. And the person that wanted it was my son Joe. He called it a family heirloom, and I just called it my car. I drive that thing, it's my car. It's not his car. Would I give it to one of my children? Well, the reason I wouldn't give it to one of my children is because they would just sell it for the money anyway. We'll see what William does, but there's a lot of memories with that car when they were little, and even with the Model T. Model T was even more fun because I put that thing together from crates. It was just a mess that I bought. I paid $1,200 for that. But anyway, this I don't think I would give it to one of my children because they wouldn't take care of it and love it like I did. They would just sell it and go on vacation with the money and have a bunch of photographs in the end that mean nothing to nobody. And I've got a piece of history here that's going to be 100 years old. My Model T is going to be 100 years old in just 3 years. And the Chevy is in another 5. So, and the Chevy means nothing to me, but I want to get it running and just drive it because it just seems like it'd be a fun thing to do. But this Model A, that's my car. And my older kids, they don't look at me for anything more than, and I'm not talking about Timothy, but the other two, they don't look at me for anything more than money when they need it. And I've since cut that off. So I don't like being taken advantage of. I feel used by my children. And, it's kind of sad. But I amassed all this stuff. And the reason I did it was because some point in my life I'm going to want to retire. And when I retire, I may want to tinker with one of these things or all of them. Or I may need the money. I may need to sell it. And that was the whole point of purchasing those things. It's like I walk around this farm and I think to myself, God, I got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in things that, I could easily sell and retire. As a matter of fact, probably millions. Just a lot of money, a lot of work. And, yeah, at some point I will do that when I just, if Timothy doesn't want to take it over and William doesn't want to do it, then I keep the old tractors and just farm this place, and into my retirement I just farm the home farm and call it a simple life. I'll raise tomatoes, watermelons, pumpkins and things like that and sell them to the public as they go up and down the road, because at that point I won't need millions of dollars a year, $1.5 million a year just to make a farm run, and I'll be able to relax and do what I love to do, which is grow stuff. And I see no deer out there. Normally there would be 3, but there's 0.